Okay, and we're on live again on Monday night with Reality Check with me and Casey. I feel like I should start doing stuff like that because I don't have my intro music to go off anymore. It's weird. Okay, tonight we're back. It's Monday. You all guys know. Tonight, I think I'd ask Casey what she'd like to discuss because, again, her being newer and not having as much time on air, kind of that fresh perspective of things, I think is I mean, it's interesting to hear for sure. I know for me and hopefully for everybody else. But tonight I asked her, and she said that she would like to talk about communication in general and how she thinks that people let labels and definitions get in the way of productive conversation. And so tonight I'm going to let Casey kind of tell everybody how she thinks how she has seen things happen in her world and what she thinks issues could be there. And I'm going to be here. Hopefully I've been in this enough to be able to offer her some support, a back and forth conversation. And so say hello, Casey.
Hello, everybody. Good to be back here again. And
we are. I'm sorry. I'm a little, it's Monday. So on Mondays, my grandmother always told me that the Monday would set the tone for the rest of your week. So on Mondays, I try and act a little like, well, it's going to be a great day. No matter what, Monday is going to be a great day. Try to act silly, have a good time, because I'm not letting Monday be shitty because that means it's going to be crappy the rest of the week. All right. So what did you want to get in first with
Okay, well, so like you said, I wanted to talk about communication in general, and it is because I have, it's new to me being online and interacting like in chat rooms, I guess more. I've been kind of secluded as far as that goes my whole life. And as we've talked about before, like I have a history with dog training and communicating with people about their dogs, which is a totally different language. But what I've learned over the years is our body language usually speaks a great deal differently. It communicates a lot differently than our verbal language. And sometimes we have different definitions for words. So depending on whichever definition we grew up understanding, we might have trouble communicating with somebody else, even though we're saying the same word. And I noticed that online that can cause a heated debate so fast and cause so much drama. And you can kind of watch people interact, and they might even be arguing the same point sometimes, but just the way they're communicating, it turns it into more of an argument than it needs to be.
There you go. Look, Breaking jumped in here with us, which is good. I mentioned to him right before we came on if he wanted to join us because and whenever I'm lacking a little bit, because we've done shows for so long together, he can step in and even offer his perspective, which is usually a lot more analytical than mine. And and for me, I'm just kind of like the street smart chick, and he's that's book smart guy, I guess you would say. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you want to say hello, Breaking? Anything you want to say about what she just said?
Hello, Breaking.
Oh, you're such a smart ass. I swear to God. He's like a way older brother. You know what I mean? Like way older.
No, unfortunately, I'm late to the party. All I was hearing about was dogs and stuff, and that's as much as I know.
Talking about communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about briefly, just skim back of what you just said, if you don't care, Casey. In a brief kind of way.
Oh, sure, I don't mind. I was just talking about how I'm kind of new to the online world. I've never hung out in chat groups. At most, I used Facebook to interact with other dog trainers whenever I was doing that professionally. So I'm going to try not to talk about dogs that much this whole time, but it's just dogs are my frame of reference for a lot of things. So if I mention them, that's not what I'm intending to do, but I use them as examples a lot. But basically the point that I guess I want to get to tonight is that there's lots of different definitions for the same words, and depending on what you're taught, you have an association with that word. And sometimes we develop emotional reactions to different words. And sometimes if we can be communicating the same exact thing, but it turns into an argument just because we have different definitions in our mind of what the words are that we're saying.
Well, And I guess I would even throw in that in today's day and age of wokeism, the definition of words change regularly. In that, if you were to pull up a Webster's dictionary, let's say from 1950 or before, if you were to look up a word, I don't know, I can't even really think of a good example to go off of. But let's say, uh, yeah, I don't even have a good example to go off of. But anyway, the point being that if you were to compare the dictionary then versus where we are at now, chances are you'll recognize that some definitions have definitely changed. And it also lends itself to the fact that, how many different dictionaries are you aware of at this point? We've got Webster's or the Collegiate or um, let's say the Black's Law, or for those on the legal side, Urban Dictionary for some of the slang terms that are out there, you name it. So, um, yeah, a lot of things to consider there.
Yeah, the wokeism that you just brought up, I kind of like unaware of like what wokeism, I don't know what everybody's definition of wokeism means, and I'm not even sure exactly what it means at all to most people, but I've heard that I say words that sound like woke culture words, and that always, like, I don't know where I get it from. Is it just because of my age? Is it because I like babysit kids and pick up on their language? But sometimes I use the word trigger, and in my dog trainer mind, I was thinking that triggered a negative emotional response in me. And for a dog trainer, it's like a more analytical thing. You like look at the thing that caused the trigger, then you work on the behavior or the responsive behavior whenever you want to like modify a dog's behavior. So like that's total dog trainer terminology in my mind. And so whenever I say it, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of it from a very analytical thing. But I say trigger online and it's like, that woke word, or I think it's woke, or whatever's wrong with it.
Well, conceivably one and the same. Training dogs versus those on the liberal left. Hey, like I said, one and the same. So chances are there's probably not much difference.
Well, you know what? Yeah, the dog training world, that's kind of like where my big eye opening, if I understand the definition correctly, the red pilling, where I really started to understand, I think I'm coming to understand that it's wokeism, but how that has affected the dog training world in not a good way. And that's why I stepped out. Because
it's affecting the knit world. Okay, that Caitlin, I can't think of her name. Carolyn, she did a famous article, or trending, I shouldn't say famous, trending article early last year, I believe, or late. Was it 2020? It had to be, I think so. She was a Democrat. She was a lefty, and she decided to try a Trump rally. And she went to a Trump rally, and now she's what you could consider a liberal, and she is not part of the woke left anymore. So I try to distinguish between left, liberal, and conservative, just because an actual liberal, they're saying they're all about free speech. Now, they have some things that line up with conservatives, other bigger topics they don't. Usually a liberal is still pro-choice, and most conservatives are pro-life. You know what I mean? So there's just a few things, but I will always try to separate a liberal from a leftist, because I think of like Dave Rubin as a liberal, or now that Caitlin, what's her name? Carolyn, sorry, lady. I'll look it up in a minute, but she's a liberal. And then this Ariella Scarelli, who left the left several months ago, she's a lesbian, and she was thought she was a leftist, and then she watched what they were doing and the things that they were pushing, and they pushed her right on out of leftism, and now she considers herself a liberal that hangs out with conservatives. So I'll just say that, I know you kind of, if you're in politics, you kind of know what I'm talking about, and maybe if you don't really study politics a lot, anybody out there that it probably won't matter as much to them, but I always try to at least give the sane liberals that amount of respect, because they still are out there. they're not Antifa, and they're not purple haired and yelling at everybody about being pansexual. They're just like, hey, freedom,
Yeah.
Know what I mean? Didn't mean to shut y'all up, but
Oh no, it's okay. I was just considering that because there are so many definitions. It makes it hard to talk to people in general, and it makes me so awkward whenever I try to talk to people quickly in chat because almost anytime anyone says anything, I'm just like, well, what's your definition of that word? Because
that's the best thing you could do. Have people define their words honestly. Now it's back and forth and they're nice to you or whatever and you're just having a conversation, that's fine, but like if it's someone that's trying to get into a debate with you, I would highly suggest that you have them define their terms, because so many people, like Breaking said, are trying to rewrite definitions of words. I mean, they're secretly trying to do it all the time, which is, and then they think that going into Wikipedia and writing, doing a write-up over something that they have no evidence or references to is some kind of source that people now use to show you how right they are. Wikipedia. Anybody can go in and change Wikipedia. Today, I'm going to go in there and post in Marilyn Monroe's page that I am her long-lost daughter. I mean, that's Wikipedia.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. And of course, in this day and age, they try to politicize everything, destroy everything that we used to love and cherish as pastimes, hobbies, things of that nature. It doesn't matter. It's all part of their playbook, their identity, politics, and everything else. It's the very thing that Trump was vehemently against, getting things like critical race theory and that out of all these government institutions, agencies, and whatnot that the woke left and that is using to browbeat teachers and students with in various classrooms all across America these days. Obviously, at the forefront of that is the 1619 Project. And how do we combat that? Well, if you remember right, somebody like Trump put together a commission called the 1776 Commission to actually right side us, if you will, on the true history of the country, as opposed to this lens they try to paint everything through, that everything is absolutely racist. And of course, all that garbage is purely Marxist in nature.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely that. Oh, thanks, Texas Bear, for the cookie, and Fox says, "Stay strong, we will win." I've got to get used to doing the gold pills in Foxhole now. So thank you. But yeah, listen, again, Casey to me has put a fresh spin on all this again, because me and Breaking have had our head buried in it for several years now. So like get to what do you think are the most divisive words that you've seen, Casey, as far as trying to have a conversation with people? We'll even use the term trigger. What do you think triggers them?
Well, I've found that trigger is the most triggering word that I've said so far, that at least anyone's called me out specifically on. But something that was rough for me, actually, whenever Adel first started following different posts and being on Patriot Soapbox, whenever I first heard the word red pill, I was just like, you guys all sound like drug addicts. Like, what what are you guys talking about? So that was actually pretty triggering for me at first. Not that a huge emotional reaction, but just hearing those sorts of words sounded like dark and cryptic, I guess, to me at first. But
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, yeah. I don't know if you've spent a lot of time watching The Matrix or any of the movies of The Matrix. What is it, trilogy or quadrology? I don't know. How many are they up to these days?
Trilogy,
3, 4? Okay. Well, the original one is essentially what that lends itself to, and was it Morpheus presents Neo with the red pill versus blue pill. That's a lot of where that comes from.
Do you know what he's talking about, Casey? Have you seen that spot in the movie? That's where it kind of gets its thing.
Now I do, because I watched it after that because Adel explained it to me. He was
right.
Like, that's all it is. Yeah. But like whenever you just like overhear somebody just talking online and you just hear these words pop up, it's just like, what are you saying? Which is where where you can see why like different organizations, different groups are always called like cults by others because from the outside they have their own language, they have their own way of communicating. It can be intimidating to somebody who's on the outside of all that, and it just makes you think it's like far above what you're able to understand unless you just dedicate time to understling it.
Or
But who called you out for saying triggered? Who like gave you crap for it?
Well, no one in particular that I can. Well, whenever I went back through our first or second reality check, I had said triggered, like I was triggered by something.
Yeah.
And this wasn't somebody calling me out like harshly or anything, but somebody did ask the question, were you triggered or were you hurt? And I was thinking about it and I was like, no, if I think about the two actual definitions, like it triggered an emotional response. It didn't actually hurt me, the thing that we were talking about. So that's kind of where I was like,
well, you remember when we were doing it, I kind of talked to you a little bit about that when you first said it. I said, oh, you could get some pushback for saying that word. Remember when we were on air? And the reason I say that is because I think people, even on the right, and are so kind of I think that's why that word is so, it's so, you'll get a lot of kind of flack for it, is because conservatives and people on the right, and I think even liberals at this stage are kind of fed up about hearing about so many people's hurt feelings because it's now infringing on their rights. Like, you must say these pronouns because it's going to hurt someone's feelings. You must allow these boys in a girls' bathrooms because you're going to hurt this person's feelings. You're watching people getting banned and demonetized off YouTube with the email that says because you have hateful content that could hurt someone's feelings. So when you hear someone use the term triggered, I think that's why say people will get pushed back in almost an eye roll kind of sense, because it's like, what everybody's hurt feelings have now got us to where we are in today's society by having people speeches shut down on college campuses because of people's feelings. You have Antifa and Black Lives Matter burning down cities because of people's feelings. It's the message for, what happened to George Floyd. Nobody ever argued when it first happened that something bad didn't happen. By the way, something happened to a white guy by cops the exact same manner a few months before, and nobody said anything because he was a white person. And so you had what happened with George Floyd. Everybody said that something, should be done. That was excessive. He should have noticed he couldn't breathe. And then more information came out about it that nobody talks about. But, now look what that one thing did. Now they hold this man up like a hero. And we're talking about a 9-time convicted felon who stuck a loaded gun to a pregnant woman's belly, who, was in the cop car at the time trying to shove his drugs under the seat. And he'd said that I can't breathe things several times when he'd been arrested. But now you're watching him burn down cities for this guy. It's not Martin Luther King Jr. they're holding up, but it's George Floyd. So that all stems from, I think, people hearing the feelings, and it hurt my feelings or it triggered an emotion. And then you get the right that say, your emotions are destroying our rights. You know what I'm saying? So get over yourself. Like I just showed you that video. I went to talk to my dad today, and I'm having my dad, who's 76 years old, go through some of the stories of his childhood. I might share some of them here. He's got a lot, but he talked about, a lot of things about how he had to teach himself how to walk again after he was in a horrific car accident, things like that. And even my dad even said it was either you made it or you didn't back then. It was the survival of the fittest. And now we're seeing like almost, survival of the snowflake, because, and everybody else is getting shut down for their feelings. But then I can show you, I don't know how many examples on YouTube where white people are called every horrible name in the book. Conservatives are called every horrible name in the book. You wouldn't believe the amount of bigotry and hate, hurled towards Christians or white people or whatever. That's all perfectly fine to hurt all their feelings. But God forbid you misgender somebody that looks just like a girl. And she's like, no, but I'm a they. And you're like, I didn't know you were a they. I'm not calling you they. Like, you're being banned off Twitter, or you're being banned off YouTube. That's probably, in a long form way of telling, that's probably why people hear that and are just like, oh, good Lord.
Well, and not only that, but you look at our education system and what has happened to this country over the last 140 years, right? A lot of this stuff, it's not like just yesterday this stuff was born and here we are. No, this stuff has been in the making for a long time, this victimhood mentality, right? It never used to be that way, but it's always been part of their plan. So they knew that they would be able to mold and shape you later on in life. So a lot of the generation that we deal with today as a product of what we saw back in the 60s and that as a result of the what I'll call the hippie movement, if you will, the love and smoke weed generation back then. Well, their progeny is what we now are dealing with here today. And guess what? Every one of those kids now coming out of college or wherever they're coming from are now working their way up the corporate trees into CEOs, COOs, and into various spots in the government. And lo and behold, here we are. It's always been their plan.
Yeah.
Do you know who Tom McDonald is, Casey?
I've heard that name around a lot, and I might know who it is, but honestly, I don't off the top of my head.
Well, I'm going to show you. I want to take a minute. And again, YouTube, if you'd monetize my channel again, I really wouldn't be worried about showing a video, by the way. But and this is an independent artist, and he usually, if he does get something that gives him a DMC strike or whatever, he removes it because he is independent. He's all about people reacting to his songs. I'm going to make this damn thing like I'm making some kind of PSA announcement. He's independent. He's not signed by a record label. That means don't come give me no damn strikes or shit. 2, the guy is comments below the people that react to his videos. Trust me, I know. I watched him on the download. Okay, he comments below him because that's how he gets his message out. I'm gonna show you this. This is the last video he did, Casey. It's got 3.698. I'm just gonna say the damn numbers. 3,698,457 views in 3 days. So he's got almost 4 million views in 3 days. So this should tell you how they try, the media and stuff will try to tell you society is one way because they have Hollywood, people like CNN, and the politicians blasting it out there like we're such a hateful country. But this is the dude trending right now, number 4 in music on YouTube. Trust me, that took a lot of protesting on his part because they were trying to suppress it. But just listen, I'll put the closed captions on. Hopefully it works. Because it was just in Dutch. Yeah, look, it's just in Dutch. You can't even use the closed captions. Maybe you can understand the verbiage, but this is what's trending right now on YouTube. Look, number 4 right now in music. Listen to the words of this song.
You lie to the government, they'll put you in prison. But when they lie to all of us, it's called being a politician. You think taking guns away will save our kids from the killings, but you're pro-choice, abortion kills way more children. If America's so terrible and...
Did you hear what he said there? You want to take guns away from America, but your pro-choice kills way more children. You know,
racist, it probably isn't safe to encourage immigration. Just saying, all the contradictions are embarrassing. You know who hates America the most? Americans. Trigger warnings used to be on TV for seizures, and now they're everywhere to protect millennials' feelings. He, she, his, him, hers, them, they. Screw a pronoun, because everyone's a retard these days. Here.
That's Blair White, by the way. She's a transgender conservative. She's born male, transitioned to female, but she's against giving drugs and hormones to kids and stuff. She's got a more of a conservative mindset, which is, you know, a slap in the face to most leftists. So they come for her.
Preaching at the protest that hatred's the problem, but hating straight men, white folks, and Christians is common. Coca-Cola telling people they should be less white. They preach intolerance, but if you disagree, they fight. There's a race war here, elections based on fear. Black lives only matter once every 4 years. Soldiers.
And, you know, he's saying Black Lives Matter only matters every 4 years, like every presidential election. Is whenever you'll see the media and stuff fan the flames of hate.
Died for this country, and every one of us benefit. Black lives only matter.
I'm going to go back because he says it's part about the veterans, which is important to me.
Once every 4 years, soldiers died for this country, and every one of us benefits. Give welfare to the bums and forget about the veterans. Black folks and white folks divided by the news, but we are all the same. We are red, white, and blue. Ashamed to be American? Okay, that's cool. Because honestly, we are all ashamed of you too.
Y'all are so fake. Oh no. The forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa. make us see it your way. No way. Gasoline and propane. More flames. Oh no. No more snowflakes.
They set us up to fail, that's what they built the system for. Put an ammunition shop across the street from a liquor store.
Now, there's a lot of black folks that reaction channels. Trust me, and they get Tom McDonald brings them a lot of views and stuff, and they have said that that's not a joke in their neighborhoods where there will be a liquor store and across the streets an ammunition store. But the same thing can be said about Planned Parenthood and where they're all put.
Women used to be different than this before. The role models got OnlyFans or dance on a stripper pole. Screw it, I ain't tripping, I don't mean to be mean, but if our children are the future, then our future is bleak. They take an Adderall to focus, hit McDonald's to eat. They're addicted to phones and they take Xanax to sleep. They blurred the lines dividing communism and democracy. In 2021, we paint the patriots as Nazis. The men playing women's sports get trophies for winning. Like, great, let's celebrate a man for beating some women. If you're black, your life matters, you're supposed to embrace it. If you're rich or you're smart, then you're probably Asian. If you're gay, then you're brave. All of that I'm okay with. But if you're white, the stereotype is you are a racist. Blaming capitalism like that's the reason
Now,
things are
listen to this
tough.
part. And blaming capitalism like that's the reason things are tough. This is a listen.
While you tweet from an iPhone and sip on a Starbucks, you're supporting what you stand against. You don't think you are, but a Percocet addict don't donate money to pharma. Damn, dog, we're all afraid to speak the truth. And the more afraid we get, the more we hate the ones who do. You're ashamed to be American? Okay, that's cool. Cause honestly, we are all ashamed of you too.
Y'all are so fake. Oh no. The forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa. You can make us see it your way. No way. Gasoline and propane. More flames. Oh no. No more snowflakes.
We can all get along, but there's no stopping. Ay, everybody's wrong, that's a real problem. Ay, they don't want to hear it, but they still talking. Ay, soon enough, we running out of options. Ay, this ain't gonna end till it's in the coffin. Ay, we ain't gonna be friends till we try to squash it. Ay, I don't know how we can make amends or we drop it. Snowflakes melt when it's hot, kid.
Y'all are so fake. Oh no. The forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa. You can make us see it your way. No way. Gasoline and propane. More flames. Oh no. No more snowflakes.
That's his girlfriend, by the way. She produces and edits and makes all these videos. You see, she's the one behind the camera. And like how I'm gonna put this up in case people want to check him out, because I always try to do that when I share his stuff. But my point being is this dude is completely independent. Means he does not have any labels behind him. He doesn't have any producers behind him. He has grown his fan base on his own. So they're very loyal. And when I say that people have tried to keep him down for sending these messages, that's putting it lightly. He just did a video a couple days ago where he was trending, and then it felt like his content had been buried. And so they must have got enough pushback on it. So now he's trending 4 on music, but he wasn't trending 1-2 days ago when he had literally 1 million views within 24 hours. You explain that. But that's kind of like he's gotten a lot of he's popular now because he's kind of saying what everybody else is scared to say, or what a lot of people are thinking. You know, like if America's so racist and stuff, then why are we pushing for immigration? You know what I mean? Why would you want people to come to this country if it's so horrible?
Well, and not only that, Tom McDonald's not the only one that's out there doing this either. That's independent. You got people like Bryson Gray, who has really taken off since he started putting music out. Yeah, he's a rapper, love it or hate it. Nonetheless, he's putting a message out that goes against the grain of things. As a matter of fact, I think just here in the last maybe couple weeks, he got banned off of Instagram. So what does that tell you? And there's a number of other artists that are out there doing the same thing that don't wish to be under the control of labels, because at the end of the day, they control you, not what you want to do as an artist.
Yeah, exactly. Casey.
And I can see why his name is mentioned so often. That was really catchy. I like that. That was enjoyable. Oh. But nowadays, there's been like generations of indoctrination. We're all victims. We're all traumatized. no control over our impulses. We just instant gratification is what we want. In a world where we want free speech, that just means that we need to accept that every individual is responsible for their own emotional reactions to words. Like the fact that you can just change the law based on your emotional reaction to a word because you associate it with whatever memories you associate it with or whatever. It's just the world, we would never get anywhere. Nothing would ever get done if we're all just like, that makes me upset, so ban it. Let's never talk about it again. Just blows my mind.
Well, that's what they're pushing for, though. These woke organizations, the one that have the money behind them, the one that has like open society, and George Soros funds. I mean, Hillary Clinton bragged about funding David Brock and being one of the people behind Media Matters when it first originated, with the intentions of going after Donald Trump. And then they get a 501c3 and say that they're nonpartisan, they're apolitical, and yet coming out of his own mouth, the man that runs the organization has said his number one goal is to take down Donald Trump. I think that's pretty political. But they have these kids so indoctrinated at this point that they're out here screaming for socialism, right? They're saying that no, microaggression speech, is basically violence, and so that it's leading down the road of now they are supporting, the youngest generation is supporting censoring speech. But they're the ones saying some of the most awful things. It's like they don't even have enough brain cells to figure out that they're the ones that are pushing so much damn hate. So It's like this circle jerk of dumbness. People sit back and watch it and these are the people being propped up.
Yeah.
Funded.
Again, this again goes back to our educational system where everybody's a victim. And of course, look at the teachers and that are put in place in a lot of these institutions, whether it be colleges by way of professors or who we have in the classrooms and grade school, high school, junior college, you name it, it doesn't matter, that they all suffer from the same belief system. And they all have to go through all this corporate training and everything else to all think the same. And because they all get federal dollars, of course, it's all required. And of course, you can see how this thing feeds on itself at the end of the day. But as Soko is alluding to here, you get these open society foundations that these folks naturally gravitate to because they see themselves coming out of these institutions as the victims, and they've got no, let's say, sense of purpose unless they're around other like-minded individuals, in my opinion, who all suffer the same, whatever it is you want to call it, I guess, same fate. I don't know. That was probably not the best choice of words. But what they don't realize at the end of the day is that they're just being exploited and they're just a means to an end, right? They have no idea that socialism, they always say, oh, it's different this time, right? Or they join the Workers' Party or something that's been around for eons and say, no, it's different this time. Well, they didn't do this, in Venezuela, or they didn't do this under Trotsky, or they didn't do this under Mao, but it's totally different this time. No, it's not. It's all the same. It's the same playbook over and over and over again, because at the end of the day, they don't know any better. They've never been taught. They don't do their own research. They just follow like sheep.
Yeah. But people who feel the need to follow, which you do see, like, where I do feel like right now, whenever I just watch, like, I guess just all the emotional reactions you see to, kind of lost what I was saying. It's hard for me to think and talk at the same time.
We're pretty patient.
Whenever I see people in states of stress or fear, it's just my upbringing and the fact that I'm usually around dogs more than people, but I don't want to keep on making the comparison. But whenever I see like a dog that's like freaking out or like trying to act all tough or like whatever, usually, like, if you just provide that dog calm guidance and you show them, you know, what's acceptable, how to stay safe in that situation without hurting anybody, like what's good and what's bad. Once the dog has that leadership, then it's amazing how many mental issues and anxiety issues just melt away. And the dog is just a functioning, well thinking dog. So whenever I see people that are just like getting so easily triggered off of every little thing, and you can tell that they're like not eating well and that they maybe weren't around their parents in a healthy way whenever they're younger, all these things, like I don't feel like, ugh, like what is it? I mean, there's a little bit of like, ugh, what has society done? Like, obviously, because a lot of horrible things have led to this. But at the same time, it's just like, man, like we just need to figure out how to lead ourselves, or find somebody that can lead us well, that isn't just triggered by every little thing and can see past the emotions that the words create, and just to get down to basic communication. This is kind of a tangent, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, but what I think that one of the big issues is that parents, should have been challenging their kids. They put a lot of this shit on the parents' shoulders. I mean, your kids are moldable, like you're, referencing, the canine species. When you're puppy, you can train, and a dog, you need to wait till they get 6 months old. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But what I mean is, like, parents have a lot of this responsibility as well, because they let their children be raised by an iPad or an iPhone. They gave their child whatever they wanted, because maybe in their lives they didn't have as much. So they thought, let me rain everything down on my kid, not, give them whatever they want, not make them have to work for anything. So now you have all these spoiled brat kids that most of them never even had to have a job, don't even know what paying taxes is, out here screaming socialism. They're out here screaming about socialism from their, like he said, from their iPhones, or drinking their Starbucks. They have no idea what they're asking for, because they have never had really any problems. It's like sending their ass over there to Nigeria for a week, or maybe send them over to the Cape Town in South Africa, or hell, send them over to China for a couple weeks, and everybody's praising about it. Then go to the Fong neighborhood and see what they're doing to those people, or see what they're doing in these internment camps. Ask them why the suicide nets up are around these buildings. And they're like, oh, all these people have it figured out. And while yelling and screaming and shouting about a country that has ended slavery. All these countries they talk about, nobody talks about, they still have slavery active right now going on in these countries. There's 16 of them. Most of them in the Middle East and Asia. Again, I brought this up the other day. That girl that defected from North Korea walked across a frozen yellow river right into a Chinese human trafficker, and her mother was sold for $100, and she was worth $300. A 13-year-old. And I mean, that's still happening, because there's a lot of reasons why. But like all these people that are so concerned about America, where we fought a war to end slavery. By the way, the majority of people that fought in that war, newsflash for anybody, was white people. We're so horrible to end slavery. So now we got a society of people that don't know what it means to suffer or work hard or have challenging life. And so now they're looking for something to be the next revolution, the next, civil war. And in the process of doing that, they're tearing down everything we did throughout history to fight for what we have today. They're trying to undo, because they're spoiled brats in a way.
Well, and again, not to belabor the education point, but they don't understand history, because look at what's happened over the course of the last couple of years as the tearing down of statues, right? They want to eliminate history right in front of our very eyes and rewrite it to their liking. And so the old mantra comes to play that, history may not repeat, but it sure does rhyme. Because why? The same thing happens in perpetuity. We go through these cycles about every 400 years or so, where history is basically rewritten out from under us. And then we rediscover what we should have already known, and discover that things were rewritten 400 years ago, or what have you, and things were hidden and buried, and we have to rediscover. And it's this perpetual thing that has gone on for centuries now. All for one thing, is to get to this very point in time where they want to institute their one world government and everything else. But One other thing I wanted to highlight here real quick is you talked about the parents here. You know, we live in a society today where both parents are working, right? Probably spend very little time with their kids, albeit, you know, the COVID stuff probably changed things up a little bit. You know, folks working from home, perhaps, kids probably having to do online learning, things of that nature, so that now they're actually seeing exactly what their kids are having to go through and finally realizing, oh crap, this stuff isn't looking too good. We probably should pay attention. But that being said, you know, we live in a society that's what was perhaps helicopter parenting, where we just duck in, see it, and then go on about our business, worry about our jobs, whatever. All of that lends itself back to the 60s as well. Again, we're dealing with the progeny of that sexual revolution back then, the progeny that came up through that, and of course, women's rights that came out of that. Well, if you think about it, the women's rights, empowering women, right? That all came out of that era. Well, the planners behind the scenes had other ideas behind that, because just like today, you never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, guess what? The Federal Reserve at that time decided, oh, you know what? Let's use this little thing that you're doing over here about women's rights. That means we'll actually bring in more by putting women in the workforce instead of just men. And so now, if we print dollars to infinity out of thin air, you enslave the masses even more by causing your parents to basically have to work 2 jobs to support a family. And we got your kids, because guess what? Now they have to work to put food on the table, provide shelter, clothing, all the basics, maybe have a little left over. Your kids now have to go to daycare. Huh, that's interesting. What did Hitler say back around World War II? Who are you? We have your kids now. It's all about the kids at the end of the day. Getting into their minds.
I would agree with you to a certain extent. Like, it goes back to the presentation me and Casey showed with Michelle the other day about all these people that are saying that, you know, the children or the communities, not the parents, which people need to hear what's underlying in that statement. And I would agree with you. It's at one point, yes, there are a lot more women at work and professionals that, you know, send their children to daycare and let other people raise them, and, you know, and let the school system do it. Don't ever question them. And shout out to Markle, I hope I said that right, Anon, who said that he's going to be at his next school board meeting. That's exactly what parents have to do, one. But two, I'm going to say as well, I don't believe that I believe also that there are even parents that some stay-at-home mothers, and Casey, I'd love to hear your point on after this, stay-at-home mothers that, you know, are allowing electronics to raise their children. Even if they're at home, they plop down, put a DVD in the movie thing, or they give them their iPad, or they, you know, kids do not go outside and interact with each other anymore. Like, you know, again, I used to hate when my dad was like, well, I walk to school back, but that is that you understand now why they said that kind of stuff. Because yes, when I was younger, we didn't have all that stuff. Yes, we went outside and we played, which means we made friends, which means we had human to human contact. We wasn't more concerned about getting a like or a retweet from complete damn strangers who we're never going to meet in our lives. And that's what brings us validation. People don't understand. You don't know any of these people. Why do you wager so much of your self-worth on people that don't know you, don't care about you, or never going to show up to your birthday party or your funeral for that matter, your child's birth? They don't care. None of these people are ever going to do that. And if parents don't, you know, start stepping back into their child's lives and at least interacting with them, I don't care if it's just sitting down and having damn dinner at you know, at a certain time every day, or asking them how school went. I mean, think about how many parents' eyes were woken up during COVID because of Zoom classes. Should just go show everyone how few parents, when their kid came home from school, asked them how school went, asked them what they learned today, looked in their backpack, or told them to bring home their homework assignments. Parents have gotten lazy. They have. I can give every kind of reason that in a way would defend them, about growing up poor and knowing what it meant to struggle and not wanting their kids to do it or whatever. But that pendulum almost swung too far in the other direction, because now you have kids that don't know what it means to do a damn chore. Like walk into their room and it looks like a bomb went off. Now, don't say, okay, the least thing you can do, little Timmy, is make your bed, pick your toys up, and stuff. No, hell no, we get the maid to do it, or mom will go do it. We got 25, 30-year-olds that mothers still go over to their apartments and wash all their laundry and fold and put it up, clean their places up, men, boys and girls. And so they're doted on and took care of now. And now I can lead that off into the transgender thing. That might be a whole nother topic. But that's why I think there's so many kids too get stuck on all these medications, and because these parents are believing people that don't even send their children, if they need counseling, to counseling. And that, I think that stems back, Casey, to hopefully your point about this whole thing. And I want to get back there because we're getting but like communication, if people communicated more, then I think it would build a healthier society. But everybody is relying on everybody else to do the communicating, and then nobody's doing it. So we got 18-year-olds thinking they know everything, and again, have not had to bother to lift a finger at all in their life.
Well,
Casey, let Casey say something. Casey, you have anything you want to add?
Well, yeah. So more communication, more time with children is definitely like a huge issue with parents right now, especially because of everything that Breaking Spectre was saying. Because the second your children leave your house, other people are teaching them what they want them to learn. But one thing that really stands out to me is more like, it's not so much that I think that kids today aren't exposed to like a rough life so much as, well, that plays a big role in certain people's attitudes. But the more that a parent communicates clearly and well with their child, the less they're just going to have to resort to punishment, threats, or on the other side, bribery, and just like being permissive about every single thing. The more you just take the time to explain to a child, well, this is this way because of this. And it's not so much like, oh, like, just don't be gay, like, or whatever a parent may yell at quickly at a kid who's struggling.
Well, I'm going to clarify something really quick. I don't mean a rough life. I mean responsibility.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Lack of responsibility is a big deal, because even just taking care of like the most basic things can really change your character, a child's character, I think.
Yeah, having people do everything for you all the time will make you think the world's supposed to hand you stuff. And that's why you see all these people shocked that they wouldn't got a degree in gender studies, and they come out of college with $100,000. Their parents are in debt and they can't find a job because, the reality of the situation is that they should have maybe looked into the career path that they were going to go down before they went and spent 4 years in college getting a worthless degree. And I don't mean that as insulting as any way. If there was a high demand for it, then by all means. But you've got all these kids graduating with these degrees that then now they can't go get a job, or better yet, now we've got this the COVID payment thing, and they're paying them more to stay at home than to go back to work. So now you see all these businesses that are reopening can't even find enough employees to go work there because people have gotten lazy, and it seems like the government is encouraging it.
Yeah, I guess back to your point on communication, probably one of the saddest things I see in our society today is anytime I walk in a restaurant, and you see tables filled with families and whatnot, and you see these families just sitting there with their devices in hand, not even so much as saying a word to one another. And I was like, how do you do that? How in the world can you go out, have a family meal, and not say one word to another, and all be playing on your gadgets, whatever, apps, chatting, whatever, heck, even text across the table, whatever. It's so alien to me. It just, I don't know. And that's from a guy who spends a great deal of time on a computer dealing with tech stuff. I absolutely make it a point when I'm out and about not to use my phone at all. So
It makes me so happy whenever I see people out in public that don't need anything immediately in front of them to like keep them occupied. If I see somebody just like standing and kind of staring off and looking comfortable, I'm just like, man, that person's really got their life together, even if it isn't accurate. That's just always what I feel. Because we do need, we're always in a state of needing to be occupied nowadays.
Distracted.
Distracted, yeah.
Well, and again, if people don't start pushing for communities to build relationships with warm-blooded individuals instead of a computer, basically a screen, be it a smartphone or a tablet, whatever, I don't care, then you're going to have kids that are more and more introverted and feel anxiety when they go out into society. To actually just even have conversations because they've managed to go, do something on Twitter with 200 characters being a jerk, and then you get these people in, face to face, and they don't even know how to debate you because all they've had to worry about is putting 3 sentences together on Twitter or going on TikTok and, putting up a video of them of twerking or shaking their ass or, whatever. I mean, it's again, so you see all these kids now that have all these different disorders, usually has something to do about some kind of anxiety disorder or depression. And then, it doesn't take much to put 2 and 2 together. And I will, again, this is anecdotal, but I will say it again. When I was married, my husband had a son. I raised that kid for 8 years. The day he came to live with us, his great grandparents, who he'd been living with for the last couple of years, who spoiled him rotten, he was a handful, okay? A handful. And the first thing that I did was get him off those medications. He was on 3 different pills, 2 for ADHD, and they even had him on a sleeping pill. He was 8 years old. And I was like, holy shit. So I went and spoke to his doctor. I didn't do this irresponsibly. I told the doctor what my idea was. He said that, hey, we can try it, I don't see any issue with it, see where he's at or whatever. That kid was off of them within the month, and he never took another one. He didn't have an ADHD problem. He had a boy problem. He was sitting behind a screen for too long, getting aggravated at a video game. And I told his butt to go outside and play with his friend in the neighborhood. He came home exhausted. He wouldn't try to run up the walls. He was tired from running in the fields. But you wonder why these children are like, batteries that never allowed to let their decharge, release that charge of all that pent up energy. And it's because they're sitting on their butt behind a screen all day and they're not doing anything to get that out of them. You have less and less kids being put in sports because they don't, it's like the generations are getting lazier, not just physically, but mentally. That's why they go on Twitter and get their information. People think they're informed because they go on Twitter and read a Twitter post. It's like, holy shit. And so you wonder how society could be convinced into doing something for a year and a half, like put on face masks, even though so many of us were out here trying to say there's no science behind it. Being told and having this vaccine shoved down everybody's throat. And we're telling everybody it's still under clinical trials. These are not lies. These are facts. Why they've been so busy spending so much time trying to shut people up for just telling the truth. And now we have this stuff with the lab coming out. We've been saying this stuff for a year and a half about the lab and the level 4. There was no bats in the wet market, all this other stuff. And we were called conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat wearers, whatever the insult you can imagine. But now, because of what Fauci's emails, now all of a sudden it's like, well, these people are still stupid over here. These dumb old people that had supported Trump, they're still conspiracy. But, now with this new information, we're going to start reviewing it. Bullshit. Cuomo was saying this stuff back in March of last year. He just thinks that we don't have the mental capacity to remember what he said. And so it's like the dumbing down of society. Again, the book that I've been reading and I've downloaded, and it's free to download, the Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. This was a plan. They want workers. They want mindless workers that just go along to get along. And that's what they're building. Or you got that right now. They're worried about concentrating on the activists to shut everybody else up from complaining about it.
Probably one of the most unspoken of true blue epidemics that's not declared in this country is probably obesity. for the very same reasons. You got kids and a food system that perpetually throws out processed food, chock full of MSG, chock full of HFCS, whatever it's renamed to these days, all not good for you. And we don't even know what the hell it means to actually grow our own food anymore. And so we wonder when we see a situation like JBS Meats here in the last week or so get hacked, that people get in a panic and say, oh my God, I'm not going to get meat, and start panicking. Or if Colonial Pipeline goes down and people start putting gas in plastic bags in their trunks like idiots. It's insanity. And again, this all is by design.
Yeah. And you can see it like spread into different areas. And of course, in the dog training world nowadays, it's like, I mean, the force-free dog training, fear-free and force-free dog training community is kind of like a cult right now. If you're in any of their networking groups and you like even say the word dominance or energy in dog training, you can just, you're just not allowed to talk in the group anymore. You're not allowed to be in the group anymore, or get referrals sent to you, or whatever financial contributions you could have gotten from.
All right. Well, Casey, if I ever win the lottery, you can invite me into that group. I will find out what those people are, and I will personally ship them an Akita and a Chow and be like, you know what? Just give it a hug. Just give it a hug. I'm sure everything will be okay. Don't worry about it trying to bite your face off. The Akitas, it'll be all right. Or get them a case of Corsa. Give them one of those dogs, and then tell them all about, you don't need to worry about dominating the dog. The dog needs to know who the pack leader is. Nobody has any business owning a strong breed of dog if that dog is not going to respect you. And if you don't, then you're going to have a kid getting hurt. And those are the kind of people that are going to be walking some dog that they damn love to death. And they're going to have a 4-year-old kid come down the pathway, and they're going to have a German Shepherd or something that's got a high prey drive. And they're going to watch a kid get injured and be like, well, I hugged it. I don't know what the deal is. We hugged the hell out of it. We've been feeding it cherries and grapes, and dog doesn't need any meat. Those are the same people that say animals should be vegetarians.
Mm. Well, that's a whole nother topic that you could get into. But it's so those countries, like, it is global, like it is a global movement to have certain training methods banned. And so there's different trainers who can get banned on different platforms just for using to like a form of punishment that someone else doesn't agree with, even if it didn't actually cause any bodily harm to the dog. It just like made them look scared for a minute. Now they're banned off of like YouTube in certain places, certain online groups. And but in certain countries where that's gotten so far that you're not allowed to have talks about dominance, submission, energy, punishment, that sort of thing. Those countries ban shock collars, prong collars, like anything that could be labeled as aversive, and including crates in some countries. And so therefore they just ban the dogs that are harder to manage. They just ban the cane corsos. They just ban, the Rhodesian Ridgebacks or, whatever bigger dogs, or put them on Prozac so they don't act like dogs anymore. Then you can keep them locked in your house so they can just be a killing machine later if you forget to give them their meds.
Yeah, it's again, so like I'll say this, I was trying to top tier where you're talking tuberoses. My son has 2 Akitas, wonderful but disciplined, and that's the whole point. Like any dog can be a great breed. Any dog can be an awesome, animal for you to have. But if you do not know the temperament of that dog, what it's been bred to do, then you have no business owning it. You have no business owning it. You have no business owning a daggum Great Pyrenees to make it a damn house dog. Okay, these dogs are herders. They live to live in a field full of geese or sheep or whatever they're out there to protect. And you put a dog in a house and think it's just pretty because it's got that beautiful white puffy hair, and they get huge. And then you wonder why it starts going in your backyard, digging up holes or chewing up your couch or chewing on your kid. It's because, again, just like today's society, and I was talking about, since you want to make this bridge, it's like if you don't get some exercise of persons, not just their mind, but also their body, then you're going to have a lot of issues. They're going to have anxiety disorders or depression, whatever you want to name it. Separation anxiety is a big thing with dogs, but you're going to have that because you don't use that animal for its intentions. And you don't have to have it go out there and guard sheep, but you better daggum well go exercise that dog. Yeah, I mean, if you want a lap dog, get a Pekingese, get a Shih Tzu like I have. Get a dog. Don't get a Jack Russell. Don't get a Jack. That's another one. Like terriers. No, these are. But anyway, like I could go on and on because I'm like Casey. I've had dogs my whole life. I've trained dogs. But that is why people are. You can correlate the two, because yes, there are plenty of dogs out here doing ridiculous things, and the owners are like, we don't know what's wrong with little Tinkerbell. I mean, we got him 3 dog beds, and and we give him the best food, and then then you say, well, how much time does he spend in the crate a day? Well, we work 8 hours and traffic about 9 hours. What kind of dog is it? It's a boxer, and you're just, what the hell? No wonder. Well, I can't understand why it's trying to chew up, the couch. I don't know. Why is your kid out here with purple hair and 3 nose rings, thinking they're androgynous? Yeah, there's a whole thing going around now about being androgynous. Literally, just cutting off your man parts and making it yourself look like a Ken doll. That's a thing.
I can't keep up.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's It's people that are irresponsible and don't take their job seriously, whether that's being a parent or being or owning a puppy.
Yeah,
don't do it if you don't have the ability to do it. Then just don't do it. Don't ruin somebody else's life because you think it looks cute in a picture with your family. Don't ruin somebody else's life because you think that you want a child, but you don't want to take the time or the responsibility of raising that kid. You want everybody else to do it and then wonder why you've got a child that does not know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
So those are the kids that you can send and you think are perfectly healthy to college and come back in one semester and I'm pansexual. What the hell?
You know what? So a thought exercise on being triggered by words. So a child in my life who I don't get to see often, and her parents aren't around that often. I know that spends a lot of time just like at school, and there's a lot of, in her school, a lot of transgender, a lot of pushing of that, a lot of wokeism, I guess. But this child is a child. And in my mind, if you're a child, you're just a child. There's like no other label I need to put on it. You're a human being that's growing. So this child tells me that she has news. She decided that she's a polyamorous, pan-romantic, asexual person. And at first I'm just like, what? And I'm like, why? Like, first of all, how do you know this? Like, are you having sex now? Like, do you understand STDs? Like this and that, like all these emotions, like was running through my head. And then like, I was thinking about it whenever you really break it down. Okay, you're polyamorous, which means that you are fine with being in an open relationship, but you're asexual, which means that you're not sexually attracted to any of these people. You're pan-romantic, meaning that you can be emotionally attached to any gender. And so whenever I think about that, it's just like, to me, that sounds like a confused kid trying to explain that she cares for her friends, all of them, a lot, no matter what their gender is. And she likes communicating with them, but not having sex with them or like doing anything physical. So like, I wanted to have a heart attack about all that. But then whenever it came down to it, I'm like, okay, if I really think about what what she's telling me. Like, I need to keep an eye, like, or I don't have, she's not my child, but like, it's got to, like, somebody in her life has got to pay more attention, you know, like kind of help guide her in her life. But whenever it comes to the just like, oh, I need to make you, or not that you need to make a child feel bad, but whenever children see adults being all freaked out over what the kid says they are, the kid sees that emotion as coming at them personally, rather than at the labels that they chose to say just then, which they're like thinking about, but maybe not sure on. So I don't know. I was thinking about that scenario a lot whenever I was thinking about emotional responses that we can have to words, and how we allow those emotional responses to like let moments of understanding kind of go by, like slip past you.
Well, you don't have to look any further, and to show you proof that I actually research and look this stuff up, because I look in all different areas. All you have to go to YouTube and look at detransitioning, and look at the amount of people that are uploading. Most of them try to get buried. Even if you look for them, you have to really dig for them. About all the people that have detransitioned and all their stories that are coming out. I watched this girl the other day, I think yesterday, and it's a whole. She goes through a story about how, you know, she had she thought she was bi, she thought she was lesbian, she thought she was pans and all this, and then she decided she was trans. And she said that she really never had this body dysmorphia, which is what they considered, you know, when transgender people have, that she never was like ashamed or hated her body, but she always kind of felt different. And so she goes through this is, and by the way, for all those people out there that think you have to go to the damn doctor and see a psychiatrist and all this, she literally said, she does the interview with her mother, and she decided that she wanted to detransition. 2 days later, she walks into a Planned Parenthood and gets the hormone injections and testosterone, and then goes home and injects it. And she didn't even talk to anyone. She went to Planned Parenthood and got it. Now she has a voice. I'll show you a little bit of what her voice sounds like in this video. And that's the one thing she talks about in this video, is that she regrets, is because what we've all been saying is the things that people try to make this act like, well, it's a decision, you can change your mind. There's permanent things that you do to yourself when you start taking these injections that you cannot change. You can get off of them, it can revert a little bit, but this is what this girl sounds like now.
Okay.
We can fast forward a little bit.
That I've heard a lot of other people talk about in sort of the same kinds of videos, where at first I was like, well, I don't know what's going on with me, maybe I'm bisexual, and then I thought, I was like, okay, well, I'm not bisexual, maybe I'm gay, and then I was like, oh, well, I just don't like anybody, which not only am I antisocial, I was like, oh, well, then I found out what asexual was, and I was like, oh, well, that kind of explains me a little bit better.
So again, this is one of these people that was confused, kind of a teenager, not knowing really what they wanted to do, what they wanted to be, you know, typical damn teenager. So where they go, they start looking on all these you know, YouTube or TikTok, whatever, and they're like, oh, that's me, I'm transgender. And now fast forward 2 years later, she was worried about detransitioning because her voice had changed so dramatically. It was so drastically, now it's deep, that she considered living as a man for the rest of her life, because her voice had changed so much that she said, I'll never be accepted as a girl because my voice is so deep now. And so she thankfully went and talked to her employer. She worked at Walgreens at the time, as like, I think it's a shift manager or something. And she even considered transferring to a different region because she thought it would be so shocking. He convinced her to stay, said, listen, it's only big a deal as you make it. But this person that went through it and didn't even start doing transition till they were 18 would come out of their own mouth and say, listen, if this is what you're thinking, go seek, you know, help, talk to someone and make sure that being transgender is your issue and it's not something else underlying. Get counseling, because whenever you start injecting yourself with what she did, like testosterone, there'll be permanent changes to your life that you cannot reverse if you do change your mind, that will be affected. And this girl even mentioned to her mom about having a double mastectomy at 19 years old. And thankfully that she didn't do it, because now she's gone back to being a female. And this is the things that, and was an 18-year-old. Okay, fine, you're 18 to it. They're pushing to do this to damn 8, 9, 10-year-olds. If they decide to start putting them on these things, putting on these injections and all this other stuff. Again, that's what I'm talking about, communicating and letting other people raise your children. What happened to therapy? So I think a lot of these psychiatrists, man, should be losing their license. They take an oath for their patients. And they've gotten to the point to where they're just freaking lazy. And they don't want to do the work, it feels like to me. So they just give these kids all these damn prescriptions and put them on all these medications that have lasting, lifelong effects on them. And then they're acting like they're the damn heroes. No, it's just,
yeah.
That's just one example of so many I couldn't even begin to share with you. I think trying to go back around to communication that's why communication is key, and being able to talk to someone for a length of time, not making any rash decisions that can affect your life forever. Maybe something that this society should be pushing more than trying to get a notch on your woke belt and saying my kid's transgender, I know a transgender, I help with transgender. Maybe you should just help the individual get to the root of the problem. And if the root of the problem is body dysmorphia, then having that conversation. But it shouldn't be something you can decide that 2 days later be put on an injectable that will change your life forever. That's nuts to me.
Well said. Like, we shouldn't be messing with children's hormones unnaturally, like, for any reason. There's different ways of doing it, but that's obviously the most extreme. And it's just like, having conversations with your child, helping them sort out their feelings. Like, if they come to you there's so many reasons why kids can act the way they do. I'm sure it's their parents, also just like the diet too. Even if you have your parents around all the time, if you're just eating nothing but sugar, then you're still going to have issues. But yeah, keeping that open line of communication and being there to explain all these crazy things that are going on in the world these days, and how quickly you can just change the structure of your body.
Well, and I'm afraid, unfortunately, that it runs far deeper than that. And that, again, going back to our food systems, Nat, whether it be big ag or big pharma or whoever all is involved at the top, this is part of our food system too, because of all the processed stuff that's in foods, et cetera, et cetera, what it does to our hormones and everything else, from estrogen to progesterone to testosterone, right? You notice that kids these days seem to mature more quickly, let's say, if you will, than say 50 years ago, right? They tend to be more developed, but yet at the same time, they're having to deal with all the stresses of school and probably bullying and all these things that they got to deal with in the school atmosphere. So there's a lot of peer pressure on them, just no different than when we were probably back in grade school, high school today. But the thing is that they're not mature enough to be able to handle making major decisions like this, right? So snap decisions, don't understand the implications of those decisions, right? So facts, reason, and logic are absolutely imperative, but you'll never hear that come from any teacher in the school system on how to think, right? Just like, for example, if you were to go buy a car, would you buy a car just because you feel like you need it, without understanding that, hey, maybe I need to look at how much money I have in my bank account, or whether or not I got a good enough job to be able to support it, if I got to get a loan, the long-term costs of, owning and operating a car, things of that nature. Not to necessarily compare getting a sex change to buying a car, but
yeah,
you
I was like, Honda or penis? Who can decide?
It does help to have those comparisons, though. For me, it's dogs. That car analogy worked.
Mayberry says, do you think soy has anything to do with it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Soy has a lot to do with it.
Alex
So
Jones actually did something about that the other day when he was talking about soy. And
Mhm.
again, I'm going to say this because I need to, because I've covered this before about the food thing. In case you'll get into this as well, as soon, I'm sure. But I'm going to reiterate this to people again. In the country, I've raised chickens. I've had chickens have babies. Okay. What people don't understand is that some people don't understand is that when a chicken is born, the time that it takes from that chicken to be born and then to go to the slaughterhouse usually is an average time about 6 weeks. Well, how is that possible? Because they inject these things with growth hormones like you would not believe. Growth hormones. A natural chicken will take about the same length of time, at least 6 months to a year, to get to the size of where they would be sent if they're allowed to progress naturally. So you can imagine how much growth hormones is injected into that animal. Now, if you don't think you're ingesting some of that after, then you consume that chicken. This is why I believe that you see a lot of these young girls now, when they, back before all this was being pushed into our food, you would see natural girls go through puberty, at a natural rate, right? And now you see 12-year-old girls that have breasts the size of 22-year-olds.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then that affects it, since that having your hormones be all messed with from your food, and then just your body not functioning as well as it should because of all the processed garbage that your organs are trying to filter out. These kids just have sugar sitting in their system, and it's their body's not processing toxins. It's all staying in their head. And if they're stuck inside all day, or not stuck, if they're, even just choosing to be inside, playing video games all day instead of running and biking and doing whatever kids used to do, that's all just going towards building up negative shit inside of them, be it emotional, mental, or physical. It's all just, and then they're staring at the computer, getting all these different things and just these images in front of their face. It's just crazy. It's just wild seeing kids nowadays. It's just nuts.
That's even before you start adding pharmaceuticals on top of things, whether it be ADHD or whatever sort of disorder or whatever chemical concoction they opt to throw into you. Who knows what all that stuff is doing?
Oh yeah. Whenever I think back of whenever I was a kid, because whenever I was a kid, I was the problem child in my family. I was always getting in fights with my parents, and it was I was a very difficult child. And whenever I think back on just what I used to eat as a kid and just what I was exposed to, and then thinking on a greater scale of what my parents probably went through with the changes, in their generation, I was set up, not saying that I'm a victim and that I'm maintaining a victim mentality, but I was just set up for failure in a way, because I was just loaded with sugar, angry. Not that I was to the extent as a lot of kids. I spent a lot of time outside as a child, a lot more than kids these days, but still I don't know, whenever I think back, it's just well, no wonder why I was so difficult. And then no wonder why my mom was so cranky, because of her upbringing and what was going on in her life and her schooling probably and all that. It's wild.
Yeah, well, it's just the same thing with the cows. They shove antibiotics in them. Again, I mean, there's fluoride in the water. It's so overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people, and that's why I try to tell people to take one issue at a time. If you're trying to get through to, say a woman, to me, that's more on the leftist side of things, and you care about them, and you just want them to educate themselves. I always take it to its issue where I think a woman would care, education and what happens to children. Right, when you see what's going on, with the trafficking at the border, stuff like that, you can show them the statistics, and they're like, "Oh, I see why it might behoove us to know who's coming across the border and who's controlling the southern border, because it's not the U.S. government; it's the Mexican cartel." And so, to me, that's why if you pick and choose your subject matter to try and edge your way in with people, and you have to be very careful too when you're talking to me, in my experience, to a parent, because parents will get so defensive when they think that you're saying you don't know how to raise your kid, right? You don't know what you're doing, you're going to raise your kid or whatever. So to me, it's best to say, listen, I think it would be, you might enjoy reading this book. And I think it does a really good job of it's very long, I'm talking about Dumbing Down of America, very long. But if you question any of the statistics or what's cited, it's cited in this book. And this woman used to work for the Department of Education for the government, so she's not someone that's Betsy Joe over here that read a couple of articles and wrote a damn book. This woman knows what she's talking about. So that's what I do with them. And maybe there's a way that you bringing in the dog community for people that care about animals, is to show them what they're maybe even just injecting the animals with, and that process. I don't know, and then that maybe can highlight what's going on with these kids, because so again, water, you're talking about the soil, you're talking about the crop, you're talking about every little part of society. Then you're distracting them with a smartphone, or you're giving them their news from Twitter. And it's like I told you I had that thing pinned on Twitter where it's like I can't never remember exactly how it's worded. Sure. The less we think, the more we can be controlled. And I've actually seen big streamers on YouTube that are intentionally put to the forefront. They're always, recommended on the page. They're the little, pet, what is it, the pet class pet of the Susan Wojcicki's of the world. And these are the people out there like, oh, you should just trust the CDC. You should just trust Fauci. You're an idiot for questioning these really smart people. You basically don't think for yourself, just trust the government. And you're just like, look at history. If nothing matters, look at history. Look at what they've done over the last 100 years. And then keep trying to tell people that they should trust the same people that have been lying to us time and time again for 100 years. Again, you can look back in Fauci's history and prove this to yourself. I don't have to do it. You can look what the AIDS community said about him back in the late 80s, how that he was invested in this Moderna vaccine, how he lied to the Senate on the Senate floor, talking about how they never funded the Wuhan lab. I mean, and then you can see now by the emails, them scurrying to try and make sure to cover up the information. Just, it trickles down to where it's like today in this younger generation have been trained, if you will, or educated, I guess, if that's a very loose word I use here, to not question anything except for our own freedoms and our rights. Don't question anything but the fact that you have the freedom to say whatever you want to, and you're the one saying the worst stuff, but you're the one pushing for silencing everyone. Like, it's just like.
Are you an avid reader by chance, Nature Ninja? Casey?
I do like reading. Mostly it's animal behavior books, nonfiction stuff like that. But yeah.
Okay. Just to give you maybe a little bit of the lay of the land, if you will, some recommended reading maybe for you, and that goes for anybody listening as well. If you're still semi-green to all this, read 1984, read Animal Farm, read let's see, what's the other one that goes along with 1984? Aldous Huxley, Brave New World. Those are some pretty good reads. Along with that, watch movies like The Matrix, Hunt for Red October, any Bond movie for that matter, because that is a lot of projection and foreshadowing of things to come. The old mantra of life imitates art, art imitates life type deal. All that stuff plays out on the screen usually for things to come. That's probably a few I would probably recommend. Maybe even Sun Tzu's Art of War. Thankfully, I had good teachers back in my day in my little town of that I went to high school at, out in the middle of a cornfield, graduating class of 36, that had We had teachers, my English teachers made us read the Huckleberry Finns, the 1984s, J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis's, and things of that nature. And I suspect that in today's classrooms, it's probably prohibited. And I'm thankful that our teachers put that in front of us at such a time to be able to see that. Now, granted, we may not have necessarily understood all of it at the time, nor did we understand that it would eventually become a playbook for the government to use against us. But nonetheless, it has definitely shaped the way I look at things in life.
That's good. I like I think that communication, to stay on topic, is always easier whenever you have like shared different definitions or like understandings, or at least you can be open to understanding what the other person's definition is. So like knowing the books that other people value and being able to read them makes it so much easier for me to interact with people. So it's like really awesome that you share this. And then same with the dumbing down of America. I'm still on the New Testament, so we'll see how long it takes to get through.
In your spare time, mind you. One of the guys over on Foxhole says Atlas Shrugs. Yeah, that's another good one. I spent a good deal of time going through one of those books recently and put that out on the old archive channel as well. So yeah, all good reads. These people had a very good feel for where things were headed, a little bit prophetic and perhaps way ahead of their time. But again, if you look at the old standard playbook that our friends to the other side use, its history repeats itself. And they're not very creative either, by the way. They just roll through the old Rolodex and expect that people aren't going to pick up on the patterns and just continue rolling on because, hey, guess what? We dumb the people down enough to where they're distracted. They'll never notice. They'll never be able to pick up on our tactics. They'll never have the information at their fingertips to be able to search all this stuff and make the connections. Until now.
And then what a wake up call that is. Everyone just has access to information everywhere. It's just if they're disciplined or interested enough to use it well.
And don't be dissuaded either by the folks that used to say, oh, you can't believe anything you read on the internet. No, everything is on the internet. And not only that, the stuff that you try to bury is not really gone either. If you try to do a search on a term on Google or Bing or something, I guarantee you that you're going to get starkly different results than what Soko would put in for the very same thing versus what I put in, based on our search histories and that they have captured and formulated for our eyes only versus your eyes only versus her eyes only.
So still writing down some book names.
Yeah, I think the deliberate dumbing down of America should be a requirement for every teacher to read and in the world, because it's not just an American thing; it's happening everywhere. I believe that is definitely one that every teacher should read. So, I mean, it lays it out for you. This is an agenda. They couldn't get welfare to do everything they wanted it to do. I mean, I'll tell you my ignorance. So I was watching a video the other day, and I can't remember who it was. It may be even that Kevin Samuels guy that's kind of smacking around black women, if you will, where they're saying that they're spoiled and they don't know how to be traditional women, but they want traditional men, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole nother thing. But there was a woman that had called in, and he had brought up the Welfare Society and asked her where she lived, and she said New York. And he said, if you remember, and she was talking about men, being in the communities where, women were basically paid to, expel men. And he asked her, he said, were men allowed in the projects, down in New York? And she was like, well, no, but some of them were there. He was like, no, they weren't allowed to be in there. If you were caught with a man, at your apartment, if that you want to call it, then, you lost all your benefits. I didn't know it was that bad. I mean, I knew that you had to write down that you were, not in a relationship, that you were a single mother, but I didn't know that men were outright banned banned from coming in the projects. So that's where they try to start destroying the damn nuclear family and making all these women think they could live without men because the government's going to take care of you. Then the government's going to take care of your kids. The government's going to do everything for you. And now we have, you see what's 30, 40 years later, 50 years later, a society that feels like everything should be handed to them and they don't have to work for a damn thing. And they don't know what it means to be told no. Like the people that walk around here with they're so sensitive. Like it's like, okay, then you tell yourself, well, wait till they get out in the real world and have to face the real world. And then all that stuff's going to come back and hit them in the face. But what have we seen? We're seeing the quote, quote, real world. Anyway, the people that have all the money and the media and the backing are now trying to come out and say, nope, you know what? These people are right. You know, their tender hearts are more important than your rights. So let's shut all y'all up and let the sensitive Sallys have the floor. You know, you go over, you put people with all the facts. Facts don't matter. You know, it doesn't matter about the facts. It matters how they feel about what they're hearing. So if you need to lie to them to make them feel better, then that's today in society what we're going to do. Be damned the facts. But that's my 2 cents on that.
A positive trend that I have been seeing in mostly like online, because some, like I said, my younger siblings, like I have different social media accounts just to kind of like follow up and keep tabs on them. But I noticed that it's really trendy now. And I don't know if this is like the wokeism movement or something, but like really trendy now for kids to figure out, or not just kids, adults, to figure out how to identify their emotional triggers and overcome them. Now, no matter how triggered you get by the word triggered, I think that sounds like a positive trend, even if it's really messy right now. I think there's people that are realizing how easily triggered they are, or like how easily they just get, like, I used to be this way where I was like more, like if I saw something, it would make me think of something else. And then I'm just like mad about it. And now society sucks and it's all the fault of whoever triggered me or whatever. I do notice trends like holistic psychology and that sort of thing where kids are, I don't know, I think like the kids are realizing how messed up it is more than their parents are, the way society's moving. Maybe I'm hopeful.
Yeah, we have a lot to, I don't know, we have a lot to learn. You know, it's like, we're trying to dissect this and break it down into parts because there is so many different, legs off of it of what I think has influenced, society and going back to communication and why people are being silenced and, the chosen folks are given the voice and the other people are shut up. I mean, it's just, there's a lot. I mean, you could literally dissect the school system to Hollywood, to the movies that are pumped, to catering to China, when you have a free country that has fought for its freedom, had wars within its own borders for its freedom, and then you have people like what's his name, John Cena, go out to apologize to China for just talking about Taiwan and apologizing to them. And then you see why, because Fast and Furious 9 was coming out and they wanted it picked up in China and played in China. The amount of people that are willing to sell their damn soul for money, screw all the Americans that have fought and died to give us freedom here. It doesn't matter about that anymore. What matters is, their bottom line. What matters is the green arrow pointing up and not, a red one pointing down. It's kind of disgusting. But again, that's what I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent. But there's so many different ways this can be looked at. It's kind of scary. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
I need these people to wake the hell up that are running some of these things. That are running some of these platforms and stuff. If you don't think they will Harvey Weinstein you If you don't think they'll Fauci what they're doing to Fauci now, which you still even have the media trying to cover up for all these emails that's come out and revealed what this man knew and lied to all these Americans, and we shut down entire countries over this stuff and ruined economies. You know, all of us that were shouting about the PCR test was invalid, should never be used to test for COVID. We weren't lying to you. We had the videos of the man that invented the stuff telling you that out of his own mouth. And then we were all shut up and silenced and banned and demonetized and deplatformed. Like the truth will come out. And what do we have to go through to get there? That's the question. And when we get to talking about kids and we get to talking about today's society with our youth, what is happening there, people better start taking a stand. And again, shout out to Markle in that Foxhole for saying that he's going to that parent teacher conference, because again, that's what parents have got to do. That's what parents have got to do. They've got to take an active role and whatever it is. If it's your child's life, if it's your state representative, if you see CRT coming down the chute, say something. Get your teachers together. Call your neighbors. Go. I don't know, when you're at the ball field, you know, where at a function or something. Print off 20 flyers or whatever, that find a good article that talks about it, you know, and hand it to them and just say, you know, you might want to see this, or hey, you need to watch this, and blah 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 blah. There's a lot of things that people can do, you know, even just in their day-to-day lives to try and help, you know, these kids today, because that to me is the future. We don't help what's going on with our youth, and the rest of it's going to wind up happening. Give it 20, like I said, I'll continue to say, give it 10, 20 more years and we'll have an entire Capitol Hill full of nothing but damn AOCs that can't find their ass from a hole in the ground. That woman's about as embarrassing as Joe Biden. And by the way, she's going to be inaugurated and write bills. Oh my God, it's embarrassing. That's why I'm telling all y'all, run for office. We'll put you on here. I'll vote for you. We'll give you a platform to run. I mean it too. I don't care if it's your local mayor or alderman. I don't care. Get in there. I would vote for any of you and give y'all an opportunity to figure it out. Then I would vote for someone that's had a career in politics and sold their soul to the damn devil.
Yeah. I agree.
What else y'all got? You got anything you want to add to that, Breaking or Casey? I got something else y'all say? Something else?
Reading Thumper Rose's comment over on Foxhole says, I believe Pavlov is right about humans. If you start young enough, you can train them to be anything. And it's you're absolutely right, because reading through that 100 years of dumbing down the country, you know, the Skinnerian method is the one that they refer to most, but even he recognized those very same traits, that the human mind can be molded much in the same way as animals. And that's exactly what they think of us at the end of the day. It's not about teaching. No, it's about behavioral change. That's the key thing that you'll find. And of course, who are the likely purveyors that most of us probably have seen pulling the strings behind the curtains? Well, Ford Foundation, Carnegie, as well as Rockefeller. You can chase them all the way back to the early 1900s when these guys first started throwing money at this.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, honey. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just realized I had to mute the computer for a second and I forgot to turn it back on.
Is there anything else you wanted to add to?
Not much to add to that, but I feel like that could be just like a whole nother show, is like the behavior modification side of things. Because I'm guessing that my experience in the dog training world was much different than yours, because I definitely was surrounded by force.
You muted. You must accidentally muted.
Sorry about that. But
you were surrounded by, and then you muted.
Oh, like the force-free, like talking about how there's like the community that's so conditioned that like you have to do dog training this way and it's like almost impossible or you get kicked out. Lots of the arguments come from the Skinner box, the operant conditioning, the quadrants of operant conditioning, positive and negative reinforcement versus negative and positive punishment. And there's so much arguments over just that on its own in the dog training world. You could go on for hours about it. It's almost exhausting.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, again, and we can always, pick one of the points and then stay on it, as far as like digging into that one. But yeah, there's a lot to it. I think there's a lot to what's going on in today's society. And I believe a lot of it has to do with all these people teaming up together to silence people trying to get the truth out, and then or tell the truth to kids or educate them and not indoctrinate them. I say that all the time. Teachers are supposed to educate, not indoctrinate. And now we have a bunch of educators that go in there and espouse their opinion and push their political views on a bunch of kids that, have sponges for brains. And I believe that it's a form of child abuse. I don't believe that that's what you're put in a classroom to do, is to build a little soldier for your community. It's to go in there and teach a child what they need to know, in order to be a successful human being out in the real world. Yeah. So, take away the daggum smartphone and the damn iPad and tell your kid to go out there, and ride their four-wheeler. So a suggestion with their friends, by the way, wear a helmet, knee pads, whatever. But, get them away from these devices that the inventors of them won't even allow their children to use. Say that again. The inventors of them won't even allow their children to use. If that doesn't, but people are stupid. Oh, that doesn't mean anything. So yeah, and this is this is exactly what I mean by this. I was I'd scrolled down this earlier today and saw this. I like this guy again on Twitter. He's pretty great. That 404 not found says Mark Zuckerberg emailed Fauci asking how he could help with messaging while Facebook suspended accounts that contradicted the official narrative. They then pumped $400 million into financing elections and did the same thing to accounts that contradicted the official narrative. When you have all these people working together that have a monopoly on these platforms where people can communicate and they try to pass information, and then you have one side being silenced, and these are the side that do all the research and bring the papers and talk to virologists, you got a problem. So, and I found this too, but I was spinning through the thread, and I don't want to get off on this. I just to highlight, guys, give y'all some news. And this was 20 hours ago, but the virologist Christina Anderson, who told Dr. Fauci SARS-CoV-2 was potentially engineered, just deactivated his Twitter account after deleting 5,000 old tweets. Isn't that interesting? Deleted 5,000 old tweets and deactivated their Twitter. Yeah, see what I mean? They're going to take a fall for what they've been doing to this country over this COVID stuff, and it looks like they're going to let Fauci do it, because none of the rest of them want to be held accountable for everything they've come out on mainstream media and said and lied about and acted like they had all the facts on their side. That if this doesn't teach you anything, it should teach you this: do not trust people that have a vested interest in lying to you. Because if they can push you one way, then it benefits them financially. Do your own damn research. Don't believe me. Don't believe Case. Don't believe Breaking. Don't believe, you can listen and then do the research for yourself. Find this stuff out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just we'll always make mistakes, but you know what I mean? It's I don't know.
Keep saying this one of these days. Maybe I need to do a show on just how to actually research in this day and age on the old internet, because a lot has changed, especially in the days prior to 2016, before the censorship and that really ramped up. Obviously, you come across story after story about folks typing in stuff in Google and how it gives you the recommended stuff. Like, Back in 2016, when Trump was running against HRC, if you tried to type in anything HRC related, it always tried to put her in a positive light. Nothing that had to do with any of the negative stuff surrounding her, obviously. It's based on the algorithms and that Google and the likes of Microsoft over on Bing and a lot of these outfits use. So the question is, all right, how do you actually get to the sort of information you want to find as opposed to what they want to present to you? What sort of tools do you have to use? What sort of search terms do you have to use in order to beat the algos, let's say? So maybe one of these days, I might take some time to put something like that together so that you can help yourself in how you go about searching for things that you're interested in rather than what they think you're interested in.
That would be really interesting because there is such a difference in how, like, what you find whenever you search for things differently. And there's a whole bunch of propaganda, like,
Their
whenever I go,
preferred sites, let's say.
yeah, like, of course, I can only see from my own perspective, but whenever if you try to like just Google dog training advice, like it's just awful. You just shouldn't do it unless you know how, like, what to look for. And even then, like, I don't know, there's a lot to sort through. So whenever you are looking into the history of America and everything and going outside of the dog world, it's
Well,
just another layer.
this is something to remind people of, because I'm sure they would love nothing better than to call us a bunch of idiots and tinfoil hat wearers and whatever. But again, we're not the ones that read the 200 characters on Twitter to get all of our news. And I brought this up I think last week as well. But the MIT actually did a study confirming that the people that were talking about masks understood data better than their opponents. I mean, again, because we care about facts, we care about what we say, because we know so many people have been lied to. We know so many people push a narrative for nefarious reasons. It's not rooted in facts. It's not rooted in science. It's rooted in some kind of propaganda, whatever that propaganda is. And I mean, they did a study on it at MIT. And that's proved that the people that, like, says that the interpretation of data and science from anti-maskers shows that they are more sophisticated in their understanding of how scientific knowledge is socially constructed than their ideological adversaries who espouse naive realism about the objective truth of public health data. To simply trust the science, as the meme espouses, is to ignore the fact that data visualizations are not a neutral window onto an observer independent reality, and that during a pandemic there's an arena of political struggle. The researchers found that anti-maskers believe that much of the official data regarding corona deaths and infections was being collected in a non-neutral manner, and that many of the important metrics are missing from this government-released data, a point exacerbated by the reluctance of some officials to release detailed data. The lack of transparency within these data collection systems, which many of these users infer as a lack of honesty, erodes these users' trust within both government institutions and data sets they release. So again, I mean, if you're going to do an MIT study and it proves that we do our due diligence in trying to get to the truth, where we don't just read a headline, I'll actually click the hyperlinks to go look at the study to see what the study says. It's why I think they're backpedaling right now with the lab stuff, is because now not only the Fauci emails that came out that proved that he didn't know what the hell he was doing, but you like, whenever somebody tries to, you have all these people going out pushing the vaccine, all you have to do is go to Moderna's website or Pfizer's website. The very top thing that it says is that this is still, under its trial period. Do you want to sign up to be a guinea pig? Sign up. Now, forget the fact that they're pushing on every person in the country. You know what I mean? That there's your sign-ups, there's your guinea pigs. But it says it on their own damn websites. So when we go out here and say that it's in clinical trials, and then you're ridiculed that you don't know what you're talking about, oh, it's been approved by the FDA, and then you push back and say, no, it's not. The FDA allowed the vaccine to move forward because of the warp speed executive order that Trump signed. There's a big difference between an approval and letting something be expedited because of an executive order because supposedly we were in an emergency situation. There's a big difference there. But these people don't even recognize that. They don't go look and research and watch a virologist or an epidemiologist, someone focused on immunology, in order to see what they're saying. They go watch CNN and say, well, Fauci said it. The same Fauci that, again, is invested in the Moderna vaccine. And so, again, going back to communication, to me, it's not even just about educating your kids or the people around you about communication. It's about, listen, look into that, dig into that. Go see why so-and-so is saying that. See if they have any links to that corporation. See if they're being paid to write that paper. But nope, no, we'll just, I'm too busy. Got to make my TikTok video. Twitter said it. You know what I mean? The amount of young people that get their damn news off Twitter is, that's horrifying to me. Horrifying.
Yeah, social media is a form of as your only source of. Whenever I was in high school, I took a lot of TV production classes, and my teacher used to work in the field for KDKA News or some local news. And in that class over the years was where I just lost respect for any news source. And I didn't even like watching TV at all anymore, and especially the news. So the only way that I would get the news is still almost how I do it, is where I just don't go to any news sources. I'll just look at what whoever I'm interested in learning about directly put out wherever. And I used to ignore the news quite a bit because I just couldn't handle it. But then I saw once social media came about and you see people actually start freaking out and doing horrible things just because of what they saw in the news that day, then I learned I needed to pay attention more, because it's why are these people freaking out?
Well, something is definitely happening, because we have the stuff going on now with Fauci. We have the stuff going on with elections. I was trying to find before we ended the show to kind of highlight, because everybody's always asking about what's the update on the elections? What's the update on the elections? And so I like this 404 guy, and he was he actually did a video talking a little bit about even what's going on in Georgia. So something is definitely happening. It's these people have, what I said before is it looks like these people are desperate. They're getting so desperate to push an agenda that they're overtly lying, which can be easily discredited, but they're still saying it because they've lost control. I think the news organizations were so used to just saying whatever they wanted people to believe, regardless if it was the truth or not. And now, because people have become so independent as far as where they're trying to find their resources for information, that they've lost that major control that they had. And now you're watching them universally kind of lose their minds. But I'm going to show this real quick because we're almost at the top of 2 hours. I'm just for the people out there that have been questioning about what's going on. And Breaking probably knows a lot about this too, but I'll just show this short little clip.
In terms of the lawsuits to find out what really happened, Ruby Freeman's in trouble. She and her daughter are in trouble. They're lawyering up from what I'm hearing, and there are likely to be depositions. And based on the social media posts of these people who talked about what was being done in the counting rooms, a lot of folks are saying that it's tough to see them giving depositions and doing anything but taking the Fifth Amendment, which if that happens, if the Fifth Amendment is taken, that is a clear-cut sign, clear-cut admission that deep voter fraud, what we know happened, the deep voter fraud took place in the cesspool that's Georgia. We talk about this a lot. Georgia and Pennsylvania are much worse off than Arizona. And trust you me, Arizona has found plenty of discrepancies. I am hearing that over a quarter, just about a quarter or more of the boxes in Arizona don't have the number of ballots contained in them that they should. Again, let me say that one more time. 25% or more of the boxes of ballots in Maricopa County do not have the number of ballots that they're supposed to have. What gives? I'm sure.
So I'm just going to reiterate this here for everybody out there that was banned or silenced, or now they say you can't even talk about the voting and the election, whatever. Remember what you were saying last year about the lab leak. Remember what you did to people over this lab leak. And when you're talking about, I've watched for 4 years, these same streaming platforms allow Hillary Rodham Clinton to do on damn TikTok, sit there and talk about the 2016 election and talk about Russia and it was stolen and all these people in the whatever that damn island was, Breaking probably knows, the Madagascar something, whatever it was. I remember all that stuff. How it was all over Twitter, all over YouTube, all over everywhere, talking about the damn voter fraud of 2016. Yet we have literal audits going on in this country, and you have these same people that shut you down for talking about a lab leak are the same people telling you they don't want you to hear you talking about voter fraud. And if you want to talk about a free sovereign country, then start shutting people up from just trying to discuss a legal matter that's happening in the country right now. And you tell me if they're worried about facts or they're propagandists trying to shove a narrative down your throat or silence people that are just trying to tell you what's going on. Enough's enough. Enough is enough, because people are sick of it. We're watching what's happening in Canada. We're watching what's happening in the UK. I mean, I literally watched a video of the other day of people on horseback over in the UK trampling a guy and laying there unconscious. They didn't even turn around to see if they killed him. So yeah, people better wake up. And don't be intimidated. Don't let people intimidate you to where you shut up and stop trying to get out the truth. Because in those scenarios, they win. And you see again what's happening right now with Corona and the lab leak. Who's now reversing? Who's backpedaling? Who's trying to cover their ass? It ain't us. It ain't the ones that have been saying it for a year and a half.
Don't expect an apology from these platforms either.
Oh, hell no. No. It's new information, as Cuomo said, even though we have the video of him talking about it last March, over a year ago. It's new information.
I think Zero Hedge got an apology from Jack over at Twitter for being put on hiatus over there from late January of last year till July, because they spoke a little bit too much truth too early on while the narrative was still being developed? Of course not. Do you think?
I just showed you that Sheriff Zuckerberg. They're all in it together.
Yeah, well, we're finding out about old Zuckerbucks and how they played a part in the election as well. Pulling into UN. It's all going to come back around, and folks, be ready, because these platforms are not long for this world. Get ready to get on the Gabs and the Rumbles and whatever other platforms may come around, because old Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, their days are numbered. They might be good for cat videos. They might be good for some music videos or propaganda. But as far as news, forget about it.
Yeah, it's all like again, and it's all coming out. And so all these people can kiss our ass. You don't think I have the evidence of the bias? You are sadly mistaken. But here's one other one. Fauci replies thanks to the NIAID's employees about the $3.6 million sent to Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance and the $750,000 sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Fauci lied, millions died. I mean, it's coming out. And I just uploaded a video on BitChute a couple days ago. I've had it in my archives I recorded this video back in February. And when I noticed what they were doing, when they demonetized us on YouTube and said that we could get it back because we're still, I'm still putting out content that's, considered hateful content. Spare me. I uploaded a almost 2-hour video I worked on for hours to take snippets of damn Trisha Paytas and all the shit this woman has done and said on YouTube. And this woman is promoted, pushed, monetized, highlighted, best buddies with old Ethan Klein that does H3H3. They get away with saying words that other people can't say. This woman has pretended to be transgender, bisexual, pansexual, a chicken nugget. I'm not lying, a chicken nugget. She's come out trying to say she had multiple personality disorders. Every single bit of it was bullshit. And you want to talk about harmful content? Well, every time I go to YouTube and watch somebody say something about white people being privileged, and I know what my dad went through to get us where we are today, I'm offended. But is anything done about that shit? Is anything done about the racism that is promoted on these platforms every single day? So it's okay to be racist to white people, but it's not, but everything else is protected class. But white people, free range to say whatever the hell you want to say about them. So spare me your bigotry. Okay, that's my rant for today. I'm going to shut up about that. If y'all want to say anything else in closing, I'll give you the floor again, Casey. Going back to communication, though, if we're not allowed to freely speak and talk about issues, then then the truth will never come out. But I think, again, what we're seeing right now is a lot of people doing a lot of scurrying like a damn cockroach infested apartment when the lights are turned on. They're all running for the closets. Run.
Ouch.
You there, Casey?
Yeah, sorry. Just had my back in a weird spot. I had a short little video that I wanted to play.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
I promise it's short. I won't. So this is on the topic of communication. I just thought this was a nice little video to show what's possible whenever you care about clear communication and respect for others over your own emotional, instinctual, like impulsive reaction to act. So let me just make sure I can do this. So I go to screen share. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So we don't have to watch the whole thing, but this is a coyote and a cat that are friends. They live together, and this is how they play, even though one should be eating the other in theory, and one should be fighting for its life. The big old coyote gets down low to handicap himself for the cat. And then the cat tries to act all big and bad. But you'll notice in healthy animal play, there's lots of pauses. That coyote's pausing often just to make sure that the cat and him they're both on the same page, that this is just play.
And just a reminder to folks that this probably two have been raised together. I do not suggest you going out and start feeding a coyote and then bringing it in your house and expecting it to play with your cat.
Yeah, absolutely do not. Even the owner of the specific coyote will say, like, never do it. This coyote has been bred for generations to be a pet, and he's still a wild animal, but well socialized with that cat. But just great communication skills. It's very different than what we tend to see. This is what I see whenever I see people arguing online. This is emotion-ridden communication. Everyone's so big and bad.
Yeah, you have the gate opening up and then look at all of them. That's the funny part is when it's like, all right, come meet me out, catch me outside. They're like, oh hell no, we gotta go back home.
Yeah. And isn't that
Y'all
so
brave when you're standing behind Twitter?
Yeah. Yep. That's all I wanted to share. There's that last one definitely reminded me of a lot of things you see in the human world.
Yeah, but see, like you tied it back to again, I tell everybody about their animals is to socialize, especially if you got a large breed, a strong breed. Socialize. And I think again, that's what's missing in today's society with the younger generation, is they do not know how to socialize. So much of their life is consumed, and they live on, these platforms. They don't socialize out in the real world. They don't know what it means. And they live in a bubble. They don't know what it means to go and, go to a park somewhere and sit next to somebody that has completely opposite political views, but yet you don't ever bring it up and you have a great conversation. It humanizes people.
I agree. And whenever you like are able to have that connection, then you can talk about more like important, maybe like emotionally loaded topics. If you have to know how to socialize in order to get to that point. That's where it's rough for people now. For people nowadays. Can I just show one more little quick clip?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're open to communicating and you're like very familiar, you have a good relationship with someone, then even if you're arguing and having a dispute and you're getting really mad, it doesn't have to escalate into full-on violence. And that concept I think about a lot when watching the news, but I felt like this video kind of portrayed what you can get away with those you have a good relationship with. These two dogs are siblings, and they both want that pile of food. And they're using lots of forms of communication to talk right now. They're using their ear positioning, they're using their tail positioning, their body posture. And it looks kind of aggressive, intense, because it is.
I mean, I hate to point out the obvious here, but I think their dad maybe deals in porta potties.
I sure hope so, because that's a weird.
That or he's got a bowel problem. You know, just can't help but notice the hundreds of porta potties in the background.
Yeah. I think this is so beautiful. They're like walking the line with each other. The one is saying, F no, you cannot have my food. And the other one's being just as forward as he can get away with, not to trigger an aggressive response from his brother. But he still knows how to manipulate the situation.
But he's already baring his neck to him. So he's not like, you know what I mean? That dog wouldn't expose its neck to another dog, turn its side like that to him if he really, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's the importance of being able to socialize, like you said, and have good connections with people and like be willing to communicate outside of the fake world. But look, the little submissive one is still the one who gets the treat. That guy's like, nah. Those two, I don't know, that might not have been as relevant as I thought it was, but I just think that it's really interesting how we can get through a lot of tense situations with people who have different views or opinions if we're willing to set aside our emotions to talk.
I think in my experience, and I have seen this some on the right too, when somebody's brought on with a different point of view, especially in certain chat rooms where it's immediate, like disparaging comments because they disagree with someone, and they're immediately going to they're a horrible person. So I have seen it some on the right, but I will say for displays of violence out in the public, I'm going to say there's one side, especially of the aisle, that needs to learn how to communicate more than like burn shit down to the ground. You know what I mean?
Well, and if I could interject with an analogy, the one that constantly comes to mind now especially is you got a jar of red ants and black ants, right? They're all in the jar, no problem. They get along. But it's not until somebody actually shakes the jar that all of a sudden those ants will fight themselves to the death. Now, who is in the wrong here? The red ants or the black ants? Neither. It's the one shaking the jar. So again, if you look at it from a macro level, let's say, who's the one really causing the strife in this country? I contend that Trump had it right. The media is the enemy of the people. They are the purveyors. They are the ones stoking the flames. Why? Because guess what? If it's not bleeding, it's not leading.
Yep, good point. However, I don't think anybody would argue with you that definitely the people in the positions to push propaganda are doing their damnedest to try and do it. And, Now you divide. It's easier to divide and conquer. So that's why the division stuff comes in. You know, they want us fighting with each other because they don't want the attention paid on the real people that are the problem.
Yeah.
For sure. Is there anything else you guys wanted? Casey, is there anything else you wanted to show or stuff before we call it a night?
No, you guys let me get a lot of dog stuff out of my system more than I meant to, so I appreciate that.
It's okay. But yeah, I listen. I get it. I get the only thing I'll say is that you can't do is you can't leave your child in the house, when you go off to work for 8 hours alone without going to possible jail. I don't know. Nowadays, they might be like they have the ability to decide that they're old enough to take care of themselves at 8 or 7, 6. Hell, I don't know. Those anymore. My child told me that they were capable of staying home alone, and they are so capable enough to decide what gender they are. They're capable enough to decide whether or not they want to stay at home without a parent.
The big one's watching the little one.
Exactly. I don't know. Crazy stuff. All right, guys. Well, if you don't have anything else you want to add, we will call it a night. I was hoping we'd be able to get into some. We still can on the 10th, but unfortunately, Eric, he messaged me earlier and said that he was going to be going on vacation, so it might just be us. But again, and Breaking has a show, so he didn't have to jump in afterward. He's really well versed, and I think it is important that we get to talk about have these conversations that are a little bit more difficult to have. That people get really, they feel really strongly about it one way or the other. But hopefully, here we fostered this channel enough for the last year and a half that people can take it here. People can listen to somebody they disagree with and not immediately assign some nefarious reason behind them, like they're horrible. Maybe they just have questions. Maybe they just disagree. They're probably not really horrible people. So
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes on Thursday. But yeah, I think those conversations are interesting to have.
Oh, they sure are. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, listen, girl, I still have questions. Breaking will tell you, I don't agree with everything in them. And so I do have them. I think it's healthy to have them. I think if you have questions, if you don't have people willing to sit down with you like we've talked about tonight and have that conversation, then you're never going to learn anything, and then you're just going to leave a bad taste in your mouth of of whatever you're questioning. If that's the response you get from asking someone that's supposed to be in the know is hateful, then why would you ask any more questions?
Yeah.
Well, I mean. All right, guys, we'll say goodnight. Thanks, everybody, for being here this Monday. We will see you Wednesday for our regular lineup and all that jazz. Then me and Casey will be back on Thursday. And by the way, Sunday, everything was fine. Apparently, we just needed to catch up on some sleep. I didn't know if I was going to be around or not. Then I think Breaking had some pancakes or something and took a nap. So we just say it's going to happen every once in a while. We have crazy schedules here in this life. And sometimes your body just gives out. You just sleep for 10 hours. That's what happens to me sometimes. So
yeah. That summertime, got to deal with the old planting stuff too. So schedule gets a little bit more limited in the summertime as outside activities tend to take a little precedence as well.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people got stuff I got to do, and I've been recording. Like I told these guys, I think I mentioned earlier, but I went over to my dad's today and got a couple of his stories. I'm going to start doing that and get a live video journal of my dad when he was a kid growing up, and as he got older, he's got a lot to say. And losing my mom a few years ago, I personally know how important it is to hear those things from your parent or whoever it is in your life, your grandparent. If I could suggest anything to you guys, get your camera out. If it has the capability of vlogging, videoing, go over there to their house one day, just sit down, turn it on, and just start telling them to tell you about what it was like when they were young, what their parents did, where they lived, any of their interesting stories. Because I promise you that those things will be, they'll be priceless, later on in life when you don't have that person anymore. So with that, we're going to call it a night. We'll see y'all guys again in a couple of days. And you two say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.